Why do so many businesses fail?
A lot of people make the mistake of, okay, I have this business idea and I have to go get this business license. I have to focus on incorporating, or I have to do all of this other stuff, versus develop something that you can quickly put out there and let the market teach you is something that they want and they're willing to pay you for.
What about those people who don't know? They're not clear on what their purpose is.
Identify something that you would do for free. And starting early allows you to make the mistakes early.
You can't learn how to swim by reading a book. You can only learn how to swim by trying to swim. That is a quote that our next guest lives by. He went to a prestigious business school that was rated #1 by Time magazine. As an entrepreneur at heart, he asked his professor, "Have you ever ran a business?" His professor said no. Determined to get real business experience, he started his first business at the age of 19, which employed 6 people. 19 years old with his own business employing 6 people. He's a patented inventor, a business strategist with an MBA and BA in economics. Please welcome our next guest, Justice Jones. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for coming to Raw Success.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes. So I have some questions of my own, but I also reached out to our audience, and our audience also sent some questions. So one of the first questions, and probably the most popular questions that I've received, is, as someone with an MBA and BA in economics, and also with some experience, real world experience of running your own business, how can a business be successful and thrive?
That is a great question. It's a simple question, but the work that you have to do there's a level of complexity around that. So first, #1, it is about value. You have to make sure, either in terms of your service or the product that you want to provide, really adds value to your user, your customer. From there, once you've identified values, then you have to think about your vision. So how much value do I want to provide, and to who and how? So your vision is very, very important, plus your value. Then once you've identified your values, then you have to think about, how can I communicate this value to the world, to the masses, to the people that really need it? From there, once you've communicated your value and the people are appreciating it and wanting it, then you have to identify the cost that you take in from providing that value, and identify a profit that would allow you not only to live, but to grow your business, right? So thinking about values, thinking about your vision, thinking about profit, your revenue, and managing all of that and keeping it consistent on a day-to-day basis is the foundation of being successful.
Wow, that's powerful. And tell us about that day. I was very curious when you asked your professor, "Have you ever ran a business?" And your professor said no. Tell us about that day. What were you thinking? Why did you ask the question? And how did you feel once you got that answer?
Well, coming from New York City in the school that I went to, I don't want to say an outcast, but I was different. And going to school in the South, entrepreneurship and really just individual businesses were not something that people were used to. Where here in the Northeast, all you have is independent small businesses that serve communities. Where in the South, it's large conglomerates or larger entities. So entrepreneurship, from my perspective and what I saw, wasn't something that was really prevalent in the mindsets of the students that I went to school with, as well as the faculty. So I knew when I was a junior in high school that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I chose business because I wanted to learn how to be a great entrepreneur with and through good business. And that particular day, I remember I was wearing a suit because we had a class where we actually had to dress up, and it was called Forum. And we had an opportunity to speak to business leaders, and we would practice questions and things of that nature. And after Forum, I was like, you know what? I want more than this. And went to my professor, asked him, or it really gave him an idea about there was a neighboring supermarket that was closing down, and it would be great for us as students to go in and actually take over this business because it's a community that's losing a supermarket. We can run it, and that would be such a great educational opportunity for me and for us. And he looked at me like, are you crazy? Like, no, that's not happening. And when I realized the look that he gave me is like, that's not possible, I realized you're not someone that has vision. And then I asked that question because I wanted to see, did you have that experience, or have you had vision like I had? Not to say that I was better or he was worse, but I had vision and I knew that. And when he said no to me, and I'm sure I was rude in asking that particular question, it was like, how can you teach me business if you've never done it? So I was disappointed in the sense of I knew what I wanted to do, and realizing that this man that I had great respect for was not the person that could give me what I was looking for in terms of my education. And in his response, and although in my response, he kicked me out of his office.
Wow.
Like, it was just like, get out of here. How could you disrespect me in the way, in what you just said and how you said it? It's like, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just being direct. Like, this is what I'm looking for. If you can't help me, who can? And I guess he was not used to that level of directness. It was like, you're rude, you're disrespectful, get out. And that situation really empowered me. So to what you mentioned, a year later, I started my first business.
Wow. Yeah. So, man, there's so much to unpack there, as I like to say, because you gave a wealth of real life experience. Let me ask you, what's the most important form of education? Is it experience, or is it books or academia, so to speak? Or is it a combination of both? What's your approach, given your accolades and experience?
It's a combination of both.
Tell us about that.
So my first business was a barbershop. And when I was in high school, I actually taught myself how to cut hair. And I was actually, through a lot of practice, very good at it. And when I had to get my first license and actually had to take a test, I realized that although I was good at delivering a service and my customer could be very proud and happy of the service I provided, there was a level of technical knowledge and background information that I did not have. And so I remember taking my first barber license test and failing because I did not know that background information. And so education, training is something where what I did was I taught myself how to cut hair. The education component is the background information, is the science of, okay, what chemical to use and what chemical not to use. Here's a method of how to do this versus how to do that. And when you combine the two, plus experience and plus you have innovation, when you're thinking about how can I grow this or go beyond this, that's when you will experience true growth. And that's when you will really understand the value of education, of training, and what we call learn by doing.
Why do so many businesses fail?
So a few things. From a founder's perspective, it could be a lack of vision it could be a lack of discipline, and it also could be not really understanding product or service market fit. So I could say, hey, I want to make pizza, right? And instead of choosing a community where there's no pizza shop, I say, here, I find this great location, the rent is good, but the problem is I have 4 other pizza shops around me and other restaurants. I'm already setting myself up to fail and not give myself an opportunity to have a market that will allow me to learn and make the mistakes that I need to make in order to grow the business, because I'm already competing. So that mistake is a mistake around strategy and really thinking, right? And planning. So
So so you're saying one of the first things someone with business ideas should do is create a strategy and an understanding. I'm saying the geography, but it doesn't have to be like a physical location, but develop a strategy and seeing, is there a need for the value that you bring?
yes. And one of the first things I would do is don't worry about a business plan. Don't worry about making it pretty. Whatever you have, give it and do it to as many people, or get it out there as quickly as you possibly can. And see if the community, the market, feels the same way that you do about your service or your product. So a lot of people make the mistake of, okay, I have this business idea and I have to go get this business license. I have to focus on incorporating, or I have to do all of this other stuff. Or they even focus on developing their product, right? Versus develop something that you can quickly put out there and let the market teach you how to build it to the point where is something that they want and they're willing to pay you for.
Wow, wow. I want to go back to that question about education. One of the and education versus real life experience. It's something that I was thinking about because I just took an exam to get a certification for the field that I do. Right, I'm in the medical field, and I just finished taking this exam. And one of my gripes with institutionalized education, and by the way, my degree, my profession has been a blessing to me. Just want to say that first and foremost. It's I had to learn a whole bunch of things that I'm not necessarily going to use in my profession. Did you come across that when you were studying business? Because that's where I probably lean more towards real life experience. And I'm saying that answer now only because of my experience of living in the age and stage and trying so many things, that I'm like, there's only but so much that you can study, but the actions is what a real knowledge is. And my issue with college education, and again, I have a degree, I went to college, so this is not somebody bashing college who's never been in college, is that I feel like it's not streamlined enough. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So I can tell you, having an education background and my business being in education, the problem with education right now, or traditional education as we know it, is that it's not really preparing you to be a productive citizen economically. So the skills that you are developing, in many cases, the way the system is set up, for example, I get a 4-year degree, let's say in marketing, right? But when I apply for an entry-level position, they want 2 to 3 years of marketing experience. But if I really just focused in on my classes and really didn't practice the act of marketing and the system, develop the systems and doing it, I don't have that experience. So you will have between 30 and 40% of college graduates with a degree and a background in a particular area that they're not able to actually get jobs in those particular areas, because the education and what they thought they need to do and should have done did not align to what the business world really expects from them.
Wow. And what can be done about that? because that's, just thinking about the educational debt, and like my wife, for example, she owes over six figures, and I know there's a lot of people with that type of debt. It can be discouraging. So as like my son who turned 19 years old today, for example, happy born day, Malcolm. Love you, son. What advice or suggestion do you have for somebody just entering, the world, entering the college or or the business world, so to speak? What advice would you have for them?
Get started as soon as you possibly can, and do not rely on, let's say, college classes or the degree to actually set you up for success in that area.
Yeah, so don't think that just because you have this paper, you're going to be successful, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, in that particular area, definitely. So for me, I was blessed in the sense of I knew what I wanted to do and I got started early. And it wasn't, and I definitely can't take credit for it and say, hey, I just had this vision I know I needed to start. It was just, I was in that position where my back was against the wall where it's like, do I work at McDonald's or do I work or do my skill, my trade? It's like, all right, I don't want to do that, my trade. And so I got started early. So one thing I prescribe to is that the person that has the greatest advantage in the race is the person that starts first. So if I'm a freshman going into college and I understand I want to do this, I'm doing it. And I'm leveraging my classes to help me do that. I'm leveraging my college community to help me build an audience for what I want to do, right? So I can get started as soon as possible. And starting early allows you to make the mistakes early, because the mistakes are the greatest learning lessons in business and in life. So if you're able to start early and make mistakes early, the pain of those mistakes you can easily come back from, because the older you get, the harder it is to recover from them. So that's another reason why starting early is very, very important.
Indeed, one of the things that I work with a lot of young men and some young women also, and one of the things that I tell them is like, yo, I know if it's tough, and tough is relative in perspective based on the situation, but this is as easy as you will ever have it. So I definitely agree with you. I communicate and interact with a lot of people who just don't know what they want to do in life. And the age varies. I'm talking about people my age, people older than me, people younger than me. And so you were blessed to have that vision early. What about those people who don't know? They're not clear on what their purpose is. They're not sure what they're really good at. What can they do? What suggestions do you have for them?
Identify something that you would do for free and do it. Now, as I mentioned, my first business was a barbershop. I was a barber for the first 12 years of my professional career and achieved great accolades there. But I don't do that now. I'm in education. It was a complete pivot. Now, there was some alignment, but there was a complete pivot. So I had this idea of what I wanted to do, but then now looking at my life, I do nothing that I wanted to do at that time. But the value of identifying something that you would do for free and just doing it is you learning the lessons of how to start something, how to make those mistakes from something and recover from it so that you can do it again and do it again and do it again. So it's the process that becomes the important learning, not even say learning tool, but it's the process that you really need to practice and become masterful with, not necessarily the thing that you're doing. It's the process of how to become great in that thing. And so if you know how to be great in this area, you can take those lessons of greatness and choose something else once you identify what that thing is you want to do or be and be great at it.
That's interesting you say that. I was just speaking with someone. Peace, salute, Sia, Sister Sia. She works in IT. cybersecurity. And we were having a conversation, and she was just telling me about that space. And she was telling me, True, you would be a great project manager because of your social skills, how you speak, you know how to lead a team. And so I'm bringing that up to say because she's identifying things that I already do in my life and have been doing for a long time. And she's taking it and she's saying that it would work in the IT field. I'm not really a technical person, as far as working with my hands or technology, but speaking to what you said, it's identifying like what you're good at and then seeing where that can work somewhere else.
Yes, and the process of being great at that. So in this day and age where AI is very prevalent and people are fearful that AI is going to take over a lot of jobs, as an example, right? Soft skills that you just mentioned, just being able to interact with people and lead teams through just your persona, your charisma, and your vision is a great skill that people will be looking for and wanting to hire versus, all right, can you program in C# or HTML, right? So the process helps you identify your personal soft skills, your methods, your ability to communicate, your ability to develop a vision, and ultimately, hopefully, your ability and comfort level to lead others. And those skill sets can be with you and allow you to succeed in any direction that you go into.
How did you end up at one of the most prestigious business schools in America that was ranked #1 from Time Magazine? So I'm assuming you had to have extraordinary grades.
No.
Tell us about that.
So I actually, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a football player. It was, I was on the path of going to NFL. I was very good at what I did, and I had the notoriety, and I was blessed to be in a position, the place, to where that could help me. And as I mentioned before, I wanted to be an entrepreneur and open barbershops. Like, it was NFL and that was it. So because I was so good, I didn't give my best to academics when I was in high school. I did the bare minimum while focusing on what I thought would get me to school, get me the scholarship to school. I basically got C's, but I did enough to get to school. And my first year at college, and I went to a PWC, predominantly white college, predominantly white school, got a full scholarship there. I realized that I was cheating myself by not showing the world what I could do intellectually. And I said, okay, I'm here. Let me utilize these resources to, again, show the world and show myself that academically I belong. And that became my focus. And it became my focus so much that I was punished for my coaches because I chose academics in many cases versus, all right, you have to go to this practice versus I have a paper I need to write. I need to meet with this teacher or professor, et cetera. And I gave up my scholarship and I had an exceptional GPA my freshman year of college so that when I gave up my scholarship, a good friend of my parents had a connection at this school. And they saw my transcripts and said, okay, we're gonna put him in this particular program. So again, I was blessed with having the vision of this is what I need to focus on. I did it and was able to have that great opportunity when it came to me, and I was afforded it.
I want to say that I appreciate you making that decision, even though, like, obviously you have to live with your choices, the consequences of your choices. Just as a black man, because I feel like there's a stigma and stereotype that we're dumb and I'm not an athlete. Well, I'm an athlete now, but I never played any sports or anything like that. But I know that there's also a stigma and stereotype about athletes being dumb. So just as someone from the community, I just want to say that I appreciate you showing and proving that we have the intellectual capacity to succeed in the prestigious schools if we apply ourselves. And similar to you, when I was somewhat similar to you, when I was in high school, I did horrible. I was in the streets. I barely went to school, and I actually didn't graduate on time. They sent my diploma in the mail type vibe. But when I went to college, I excelled only because I like you, chose to excel. Like I just chose that I had a chip on my shoulder, and I just wanted to show and prove that I can do it. And so it's something about when you choose to apply yourself and you choose, you know what, I'm going to step it up. Then you prove to yourself. And I think that, I believe that, how they say it takes a village to raise a child. So we are a reflection of who we are. There's an African proverb that says, I am because we are because I am. So I am a reflection of you. You are a reflection of me. So thank you for making that choice to step up. Yeah.
Nah, I appreciate that acknowledgement. One thing I will say is that the education system was not necessarily designed to really empower us. It was designed to control us. And so naturally, there are a lot of, and I'll say this, Black and brown families, right, that are miseducated on the value of education because of their experiences. And because of that miseducation, they devalue the power of education and how they should focus on it with their children. And so because they don't necessarily focus on it, their children are not going to focus on it, they don't understand the value of it until it's too late. And so a lot of our families don't really understand that you should buy the laptop versus buy the Jordans, right? You should say, hey, you need to spend as much time as you do practicing basketball with algebra, because the balance of the two is really what makes you a superior person economically in terms of the value that you can add to society, not one or the other. And so because we have devalued education, there are generations of Black and brown children and people that are not able to compete with the world. And so you can compare yourself to, let's say, a high school student in let's say here in New Jersey, right? If you were to compare yourself to a student in Egypt, you may think that student in Egypt doesn't have maybe the opportunities that I may have. But that student in Egypt, because their parents value education and see the power of it, is better prepared and seen as someone that could add greater value in the world than you. And they will be the ones that will have the opportunities, not you.
Interesting. And when you said education was, and I'm paraphrasing, I forgot the exact word you used, was designed to control us?
Yes.
Expound on that.
Well, the public school system here in the U.S., that was the purpose of it, to control you in your behavior from a religious perspective. So if you actually study public education, it wasn't for the purposes of empowerment. It was to control you to live within the religious laws that at that time in the U.S. was prevalent.
And it's interesting because I see you have a shirt with arms breaking chains, and you're in education. Tell us about that.
So my company, 24/7 Teach, the idea and the premise of what we do is connecting the best teachers to the most students. Because when you interact with a great teacher, someone that is intellectually prepared but has a certain level of empathy and care for you, there's nothing that can stop you. You're empowered, you're inspired by that person because they understand what's important and they're able to impart that into you. And so as an organization, we've found that, let's say algebra as an example. Many people will say, I don't use algebra. in what I do. Why do I need to learn this? Many students will say that. But if you have a friend and your friend said, okay, this person said this and this occurred, that's A plus B equals C. That's algebra. That's problem solving. And so what people don't understand is when you don't put your best, especially into learning history, learning how to communicate through what you read, what you write, and learning critical thinking skills in mathematics and science, you're not gaining the skill sets to really navigate complex issues in your life. And so you don't have that confidence to deal with, hey, I just dealt with this problem with my potential boss, or here's this opportunity that I have to rise above because I have to start thinking beyond what I see or what's in front of me. You don't have those skill sets. And so breaking the chains is really, in terms of education, is really about understanding the value of what you're doing. It's not so you can pass this test. It's for you to understand how to think so that when true challenges and opportunities come for you and are in front of you, you have the mindset, the heart set, and the skill set to take full advantage of them.
Yeah. And if you can define or articulate what that mindset is, what would that mindset be?
Humility and confidence.
That almost seems like an oxymoron.
Well, confidence in what you know and what you can do, but being humble in the sense that you're here to serve, right? So I'm not here to use my education or what I know to show you or make you feel less than. I'm here to support you and add value with what we're here to do. So I can be humble in the sense of I am not better than you regardless of how many accolades I have, what car I drive, how much money I have in the bank. But I'm confident in what I know, what I can do, and my ability to communicate that and add value to a society.
I love that. I know you have some team members, and you mentioned like they're out of state. So one of the questions that I received from our audience is, how do you build and manage high performing teams?
Number one, it starts with vision. Having a clear vision and mission. So a vision is what you want to accomplish. A mission is how you want to accomplish it, right? Once you have that, then it's about finding the right people. Because I could sit here and say, hey, we can develop all of these different systems. We can bring in this, we can do this, we can do that. But ultimately, when you have a very strong vision and a mission, when you find the right people, they will create everything that's needed. They'll give you the systems, they'll give you the ideas, they will take ownership of that particular vision. And all you need to do is to continue to hone that vision, continue to develop your communication skills to be able to clearly articulate that vision in a very simple way, and then, more importantly, walk the talk.
Yeah. I have another question for you from our audience. I want to make sure I get to these questions. This was actually from my daughter, Lanasia and Clarence. Peace. They want to know, what did you sacrifice to get the accolades that you've acquired, that you've achieved, and also success?
Everything. Yeah. Relationships, time with friends. As an entrepreneur, you have to give so much of yourself because your business is your baby. And like a mother who has a child who gives so much of themselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, you as the father or the mother of this business, you give up as much as you possibly can in order for that business to survive. So a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of money, relationships where, hey, people will think, oh, well, you don't care about this relationship because you're not willing to invest time in this. It's not that. It's just this baby needs me. And in some cases, for some people, and me in times of my life, you sacrifice your health, right? Where I'm going to operate off of 2 hours sleep when I know my optimum amount of sleep is around 7 hours. I need that, right? So I would say if you're willing to start a business, it will be probably the most hardest thing that you do because of the amount of things you have to sacrifice. But you will get what you put in.
Wow, that's powerful. With all of these emerging trends and opportunities and a whole bunch of gurus online and social media and everything, I find that it could be distracting, right? And for myself personally, but also just from my experience working with young men and women in terms of purpose and vision, what advice would you give them? You know, there's just so much out there. There's this way to get rich, that way to get rich, crypto, invest in this, properties, flips. You could blow up on Instagram.
Money is a byproduct of success. Success is not the byproduct of money. So if you're looking to start a business because you want to get rich, I would tell you don't do it. Because there is a very small percentage that you actually will get rich, and even a small position that you'll stay rich. Okay? And as I said before, the greatest thing that you can do is just get started. And don't worry about what it looks like. Don't worry about if it's perfect or not. Get it out there to the world. And through that process, the work that you will do, who you will become, and how you communicate it, what you do to build it, what you do to improve it, those are the lessons that will allow you to be successful. So again, 2 words, get started.
What was the most important thing that academia taught you when it comes to business? And what was the most important thing you learned from experience when it comes to business?
Academia taught me not so much about an individual subject or topic. It taught me how to study. It taught me how to consume a lot of information, interpret it, or analyze it, interpret it, and be able to make decisions. So when you think about academia and you think about school, let's say you're given a paper that you need to write. It's not so much about you writing the paper on this particular topic to get this grade. It's about the thinking work that you need to do to clearly articulate a message that adds value to the reader. And when you start doing those type of exercises and how you approach your assignments, then it's not about the grade. It's about the process. Because that same process, when you have mastered that and you can be successful in getting the grade that you want, you can take that same process in the learn by doing component and do it systematically, do it with a level of detail like you wrote the paper, and you will see the outcomes. So for me, academia is just practice. And when it comes down to actually just doing it, learning from experience, it's another layer of practice. And when you see them as one and the same, then that's what will allow you to be successful, both from a thinking perspective as well as a doing perspective. And I will add this. If you really just focus on, let's say, learning by doing, if I just said, hey, I just want to be a great barber, right? And I'm doing barbering, I'm doing the skills, I'm giving you a lineup, I'm using razors, I'm doing all of these different things, I'm always going to hit a plateau because there's only so much that I can do. It takes critical thinking, it takes other soft skills that allow you to gel with other people, to do things beyond you. And that's where the combination of school and also work and actually doing it is very important.
Wow. And what about the real world experience? You're saying that they're both, is for both of them, your answer is that it's a process.
It's definitely a process because, and I'll put it to you this way. I recently taught my youngest daughter how to ride a bike, right? And I could teach her the theory. You put your feet on the pedals, you push down, there's propulsion, and you're moving, right? There's a theoretical aspect of that. And she could say, yes, I understand that. If I gave her a multiple choice test and said, okay, do you remember this, this, and this? She could pass it. But if I were to put her on the bike, she would not be able to create value or impact with the bike. So learning by doing, it goes beyond the grade, or the grade that you receive is based on the impact that is produced by you doing what you do. So if I taught you how to bake a pie, same thing. You can look at a recipe, follow through with that recipe, but if the pies that you make, no one likes them, did you really learn how to make a pie? Not really. You learned the process, you learned the steps, but you didn't learn anything that would allow you to add value or make impact. That's the key to education. That's the key to learning by doing.
Love it. So the CEO of Epoxy Flooring asked a question. He actually asked two questions for you. How common is it for businesses to go through multiple rounds of funding to achieve success? And what are the pros and cons of this approach?
It depends on the business, and it depends on the goals of the founder. So if the goal of the founder is to be, hey, I want to build a business where I'm comfortable and I can provide a great life for my family, you may not even need a round of funding. But if you're building a business where your goal is to serve millions of people and you're doing it, let's say in technology, where you need to hire people, you need to bring people together, then you will need funding, right? And the key to funding is this. People don't understand that when you go for funding, you're basically becoming a slave to whoever is giving you that money, right? You are losing power over your vision and what you're doing. So if your business is your baby and I get an investor, well, now you have another parent to deal with, right? And let's say that's seed round. Then let's say round A, I have another set of parents now I have to deal with. Now I am the true parent of this baby. I'm the founder. I know I have this vision. I know what I want to see. But the more parents and the more voices you have to answer to, right, the less power you have in actually acting on and implementing your vision. So be very mindful of what you do, how much money you will need, and be mindful that every funding round, you lose power. And so if you are in a business where you are willing to have a very small piece of a very valuable item, no problem, right? But if you say, hey, this is my baby, this is my vision, this is what I want, I would not think about funding. I would think about how can I make this product so great where I can grow it without anyone's help.
I love it. Here's his second question. What are the most effective ways to increase sales beyond social media marketing? And how can a business measure the ROI of these efforts?
So social media marketing is interesting in the sense of you're delivering content to stay in your audience's mind, right? But ultimately, if you deliver a great service and you have a great relationship with your customer, right? Utilize your customer to share the wealth, spread the word. And so the most effective form of marketing is word of mouth. It's the cheapest, right? It will give you the greatest ROI. Now, in terms of just general social media marketing as a whole and content creation, Now, especially in the day of AI, where before, let's say 2 years ago, there were, let's say, 1 million people creating content. Now there's 10 million people creating content. So you're competing for seconds of time with 10, and I'm even going to say at this point, 1 billion people trying to create content. So if you look at it from that perspective, you can see social media marketing or any, let's say, individual marketing channel is not a great investment. It's a combination of doing a lot of great things, but the first and most important thing is making sure that the service or product that you're providing to your customer is of very high quality so that they're willing to say, hey, you know this, I got this here. Or if, let's say, a family friend sees what they have, where'd you get that? I want that. That's where your focus should be.
Yeah, back to that value.
Yes.
Man, bringing value is the most important thing. As the walls have tumbled down, people mention, like, for example, the music industry. And I know you're not in the business of music, but I think that it's all connected. The walls have tumbled down. I think social media has helped with that, right? Is the traditional ways of looking at business, is it outdated? Has it evolved? And how can the small business person now take advantage of the new ways of doing business?
So definitely yes. And just a simple example would be, think about putting a 1969 Corvette engine in a 2024 Corvette. Powerful engine for that time, but not designed and built for what's needed for today. So don't think about what worked in the past. Really think about right now, going back to value, focusing on your value. And I would say for any small business, what AI, what technology has done, it has made doing what you want to do easier and cheaper. So, for example, when I started 24/7 Teach, there were websites that would potentially cost me $10,000, $20,000 to create. Now, there are a plethora of website platforms out there that I can create a website for $20 a month. So the barrier of entry to start your business is very low, which is a great thing, but it does create other challenges because it's easy for you and it's also easy for everyone else. So again, you have to focus on the value that you create, the vision that you want to have for your business, and really successfully executing on that value and your vision.
And now, what does the person that was charging $5,000, $300, $500 for a website, now knowing that people cannot do it themselves for $20, what does that person do now?
Hopefully, that person did so much great business that they saw that the change in the industry, and they're the ones that created the platform that would allow people to create a website for $20. That's what you really want to do. But if you did not see the trend and you did not evolve with society and what's available, you'd be out of business.
So one has to be aware of the trends.
Definitely. So if you are a sneakerhead, as an example, I have a great number of great friends that just love sneakers, right? You're paying attention to the latest sneaker that comes out. You're paying attention to the latest technology and the differences and the details of those sneakers. It's just like that with business. You have to understand the trends. You have to understand where you need to go within your lane and how your lane is going to change a year from now, 5 years from now. And you have to be adaptable to be able to align yourself with those changes that are needed.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking about, if you truly love what you do, you're studying it because you love it anyway. Like if you, like I think about, I'm a martial artist. So the people I know who are black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they're still attending class. Because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has evolved as an art. So they're learning the new moves and the new ways, and because it keeps evolving, people develop their own style, their own jujitsu, so to speak. And so I dare say that it also weeds out the people who are not really about it. Because if this is your craft, then you'll stay on top of it, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any like business people, like let's say like, I don't know, Elon Musk or anybody that you admire, and why?
A few. And most of them I don't know. But one particular person was actually my first boss. And his name was Matthew Fields. And he was a very good friend at the time. He was one of my customers. And what he showed me was how to be serious and show a level of care for what you want to do, but have fun doing it. And so that is something that I've worked to emulate, in a sense of enjoying your life, but when it's time to work and it's time to study, be very focused and understand your value and understand your impact.
That's interesting you say that. So I had a co-host that would do this show with me, and after the show, I would call him, and sometimes every now and then I would ask him, "Yo, are you still having fun?" Because I know I am. Like, I'm having fun right now. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love this stuff. It raises my energy and everything. And I would ask him that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. So anybody else with that say? I know you said there's a few.
No, well, that's one person that I know. So another person that I really, really study is Steve Jobs. So
I read his book, powerful.
Yeah, and I study Steve Jobs because his level of insight and the way he interacted with people, most people didn't like him, right? But they respected him because of his vision and his greatness and his ability to communicate a vision and make sure that whoever worked on it implemented it to the T. And so details matter. And you will find the people that have the highest standards in what they want and what they do will be the most successful. And so really honing in on what and I'm going to say it this way, your God standard is. And being strong enough and holding people accountable, including yourself, to meeting that standard. And fighting as hard as you possibly can every day to meet that standard. And that was a major takeaway that I had from Steve Jobs and studying him.
Indeed. As we start to land the plane, I want to make sure I get to the final question from our audience. So in regards to funding, a lot of people say they want to start a business, but they don't have the resources. They have great ideas, they have vision, but they don't have the money. What would you say to those people?
Start small. And remember, if you're not willing to invest, no one else is. So I'm not going to invest $100,000, $1 million into someone that is not or has not done the same, right? Has not invested their time, has not invested money. So number one, if you want to be an entrepreneur, think about all the things you can do that don't necessarily require the amount of money you think you need. Because in many cases, you don't need that much. Really what you need is, again, and what you should invest your time in, and whatever money you do have or resources you have, is to be able to deliver a product to see if people are willing to pay for it.
Final question. Just want to make sure I don't leave our audience hanging. You're a patent inventor.
Yes.
Tell us about that. I don't frequently run into or meet inventors.
So that's actually a great question. My first business and really my first vision was to be one of the first black-owned black barbershop franchises and beauty salon franchises. And what I learned through working to develop a franchise, it's based on systems, things that can be replicated over and over and over again.
So it's sort of like the E-Myth.
Very much so. And E-Myth is actually one of the first books I read about this, right? And I learned that with black and brown people with hair, because we are just so different, our hair is different, textures, styles, everything, there's no real system that you can develop to provide the service. So what I looked at was, I can't develop a service or a system on how to do a particular style of haircut. But what I can do is develop systems on how we manage revenue. And so at the time, I developed a machine that vended electricity and water. And I did it with some great partners at the time. And we did about 2 years of testing. I've traveled to Israel to meet with people, dealt with people from China to build this particular prototype that allowed us to basically be an absentee owner of a barbershop, a beauty salon, because you are vending and really controlling electricity and the resources that are needed. And so when we developed that, the organization that actually did the manufacturing for us, the CEO said, hey, this is something that you should patent. And at the time, my partner's father was a great patent attorney and really helped us out. And we went through that entire process. And it was one of the greatest experiences in my life because, again, it's building something from scratch, understanding what it takes. And then when you see it in action, it's like you can step back and see the impact of your thoughts, your action, and how it can help others.
Wow, that's amazing. So what last words do you have for our audience? Tell them how to find you, the services you offer, everything.
Sure. So the name of my company is 24/7 Teach. We focus on delivering customized education and training for teens, adults, and organizations. And we are at 247teach.org. That's our website. And final words that I can give you, you've heard me say this a lot, get started, number one. Number two, identify your vision and be very clear on that and do a lot of work around that. Number three, create value with what you want to do. And we'll go back to the first one, get started.
In terms of your company and the programs, the educational program that you offer, one of the things that I do is I speak in schools and I mentor the youth and whatnot. And a lot of times parents do reach out to me about resources, learning resources, behavior resources and whatnot. So tell us a little bit about your company in terms of what it offers, right? And we'll make sure to have a link. So if any of our listeners wants to, inquire and hire you and your company for your services, then they can go do so.
Sure. So as I mentioned, 24/7 Teach focuses on providing customized education and training opportunities for teens, adults, and organizations. So the services that we provide for teens are career development. So let's say a teen wants to gain web development skills before they go to college, right? Or let's say they want to identify a major and they want to try something out. We have career skill trainings that we provide. We also provide life skill trainings. So for example, financial literacy, time management, public speaking, those soft skills that not everyone focuses on, we provide training so that you can specifically hone in on those skills or that knowledge set so that you are prepared for life. And then we have a virtual school for students let's say, student athletes or let's say actors that really have a very busy schedule and cannot go to a traditional school, we provide virtual schools there. Now, for adults, we provide career training services. So for what I mentioned earlier, we provide boot camps in instructional design, UX and UI design, web development, as well as digital marketing. And for organizations, we provide web development services, but more importantly, we provide training development services. So for organizations that want to train their workforce or upskill their workforce, they can come to us and give us all the information that is needed, and we can use our expertise in education, neuroscience, and more importantly, experiential learning, learn by doing, to create a training that will allow them to provide value for their employees in terms of how they learn, so that their employees can add value to the organization based on what they learn.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And as far as like the boot camps or any of those programs, do they receive some type of certificate that will solidify and qualify them for the next step into their careers or the job market?
Yes, but more importantly, that's one thing. I think you can get a certificate anywhere. We guarantee a job, or we'll give you your money back.
Oh, how's that?
So again, we develop our educational offerings through the process and really our research in neuroscience, how you learn, project-based learning or experiential learning, and the theory. Okay, so we put all of that together with customization, project-based learning, the theory, and based on all of that, we are very confident in the training and education that we can provide, so that we say, hey, if you cannot get a job based on what we teach you, we'll give you your money back.
So are you also like, this may sound like a silly question, forgive me. So you also teaching them how like do a resume and
The whole
LinkedIn
process.
account?
The whole process.
Oh,
So
wow.
we will teach you the skills, and we teach you with job experience. So as soon as you start, although you are just learning this information, you're gaining job experience in real time. So throughout this process, we're teaching you not only the theory and the actual skill, we're teaching you how to operate within that job. Because our learning model is based on 3 words: learn, do, be. So in traditional school, you're learning something, but what you're doing it for a grade that most likely you don't really care about. And if you do care, you'll do the assignment, and after that, you forget about it. With us, what you're learning, you have to apply it in real time, and what you are doing is actual work that type of person who has that title is doing. So everything, if you're learning instructional design, everything that you're doing, you are an instructional designer from day one. And we're training you from that perspective. Now, the guarantee is also on us, because we're saying, as an education company, the value of what we provide, if it doesn't have an impact on your life, then we didn't really do what we set out to do for you.
Let's get it. With that being said, tell a friend if you know any entrepreneur, any striving, thriving business people on any level, share this episode with them. My man is dropping heavy gems. Subscribe, share, all of that good stuff. Let's get it.